You may have heard that one of the stones now is supposedly from Scotland for Stonehenge, which means it's really almost impossible for people back then to have moved a stone from Scotland to Wiltshire, and then the other stones from Wales to Wiltshire. So, if you're interested in finding out why Stonehenge was put there and who put it there, because it's in the middle of nowhere, there was no settlements, there was a few dead people, but no settlements. In order for someone to know when the equinox was, they would have had to have their own mini calendar, and we've got zero evidence of any mini calendars in any settlements. Again, none near here. So people would have had to have their own calendar, said, aha, it's going to be the solstice tomorrow. Let's all go and travel miles and miles and miles to go and see this. So they would have needed, but we've got no evidence. However, if you watch my amazing documentary called Stonehenge Solved, you'll get all the answers. And all you have to do is go to my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk, type in Stone. Heaven and Hell Solved.
If you are new to our True History videos, he has been doing this for over 40 years and is the foremost expert. Feel free to watch his videos. He has solved with evidence many of the mysteries you thought would never be solved. OurTrueHistory.co.uk.
Good old heaven, up there. Even if you are in Australia, it's still up. Why do you think we look up to heaven? Simple answer is because the gods went up to heaven, as it says in ancient texts. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we need to work out why people even mention the word heaven. It's because it's in the Bible. Yes, it's in older texts, but so is the great Lord Enki, but none of us pray to him. So we use the word from the Bible. Here is what heaven means in the Oxford Dictionary: a place regarded in various religions as the abode of God, or the gods, and the angels, and of the good after death, often traditionally depicted as being above the sky. Literary. The sky, especially perceived as a vault in which the sun, moon, stars, and planets are situated. Isn't that funny? The dictionary actually tells us what it is. It is space, but I'll get to the evidence soon. I know in space I can see the sun, moon, and stars, but I can't see heaven. The dictionary agrees it's space, vault, in which the sun, moon, stars, and planets are situated. So why do we believe it's a place for dead people? I'll get to that later on. Let's look at some passages from the Young's Literal Bible. That is the only Bible you need to read. Any others have been changed. See my other videos for evidence of that.
Revelation 21. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth did pass away, and the sea is not any more. 2. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of the heaven, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. 3. And I heard a great voice out of the heaven, saying, Lo, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will tabernacle with them. And they shall be his peoples, and God himself shall be with them, their God. 4. And God shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and the death shall not be any more, nor sorrow, nor crying, nor shall there be any more pain, because the first things did go away. 5. And he who is sitting upon the throne said, Lo, new I make all things. And he saith to me, Write, because these words are true and steadfast. 6. And he said to me, It hath been done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I to him who is thirsting will give of the fountain of the water of the life freely. Let's break this down. John could see a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and earth passes away, and so does the sea. If John was on a spaceship in heaven, space, then as the planet turned, the earth would have gone then sea, then back to earth. But the next bit is interesting. It says, I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of the heaven. I have no doubt John had just been with God, Anunnaki, in space, and is now coming down to earth. I'll read it again. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of the heaven. That's clearly two parts. It even has lines to break it up. He sees New Jerusalem. Then a short while later, the craft he is in descends down. That's why it then says, coming down from God out of the heaven. That was a start of a new passage. Again, while in the spaceship on the way down to earth, a voice comes over the radio.
This was just part of the full-long documentary. To watch the full version, visit ourtruehistory.co.uk. So this religious person said that I must have been Christian and bitter things happened to me in my life because I'm devoted to disproving not only God but Creator himself. However, I only go by evidence. And you know that because you've watched my videos. So we have evidence of the Anunnaki. We have evidence that they genetically modified a hominid species here on Earth. We have zero evidence of a creator of everything because the Bible mixed up the first 6 days of creation. I've already done a video on that, which you've decided not to watch because you want your own. So this person basically said on another post that because things are around us, trees and plants, therefore an intelligent being created it. So of course I've asked who created the intelligent being, and his answer was, well, it evolved. So I said, so why can't the plants and trees? Yeah, bash your head against the brick wall.
For the first time ever, the secrets of the dollar bill have been uncovered. While many videos demonstrate intriguing folds revealing the Twin Towers or highlight small details, no one has fully deciphered the hidden messages that reveal who is truly running our planet and which Anunnaki the dollar references. From the world's leading researcher comes a documentary that will leave you breathless. This is the same researcher who has provided evidence for the location of Atlantis, solved the mysteries of heaven and hell, unveiled the real father of Jesus, identified Yahweh, decoded the mark of the beast, and explained the firmament, among many other discoveries. This new documentary will finally answer the question of who is running our planet. Stay tuned for its release. In the meantime, you can explore over 1,000 videos at ourtruehistory.co.uk.
That hell was a real place, although not what you might think. Hell solved. As you may know by now, I like to look at everything. In this case, I'll first look at where hell was first mentioned, why and by whom. Then I'll look into what other cultures around the world had the concept of hell. Then with evidence, I'll be able to show you where they all got the idea of hell from and what it really was. Remember, no other researcher has ever done this with the same answers and evidence as this video. Sorry, just a bit of self-praise for myself. Enough chat, let's start.
The concept of hell as a place of punishment for the wicked after death has ancient origins and varies significantly across different cultures and religions. Here's an overview of its first mentions in several major traditions. One of the earliest mentions of an underworld appears in ancient Mesopotamian mythology. The Sumerians spoke of a netherworld called Kur, or Ekala, where the dead would go regardless of their deeds in life. This underworld was ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal. Ancient Egypt, the Duat. In Egyptian mythology, the Duat is the realm of the dead. It is not explicitly a place of punishment, but it involves a journey where the dead face various challenges and judgments. The concept is detailed in texts such as the Book of the Dead, Ancient Greece Hades. The Greek concept of the underworld, Hades, is mentioned in Homer's epics, 8th century BCE. It is ruled by the god Hades and is a place where souls of the dead reside. Tartarus, a deeper part of Hades, is where the wicked are punished. Ancient Judaism Sheol. In the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, Sheol is mentioned as a place where the dead reside, often described as a shadowy and silent pit or abyss. It is not initially depicted as a place of punishment, but rather a neutral place where all the dead go. Over time, the concept evolved, and by the intertestamental period between the Old and New Testaments, ideas about different fates for the righteous and wicked began to emerge. Christianity. The New Testament, particularly the teachings of Jesus, introduces the concept of Gehenna as a place of fiery punishment for the wicked, e.g., Matthew 5:22, 10:28. This term is derived from the Valley of Hinnom near Jerusalem, which was associated with child sacrifice and later became a metaphor for hell. Islam Quran. In Islam, hell is referred to as Jahannam, a place of severe punishment and suffering for sinners and non-believers. The Quran contains numerous references to Jahannam, e.g. Surah 456, 1543-44. Hinduism and Buddhism. Naraka. In Hinduism, Naraka is a place of torment for sinners. It is described in texts like the Puranas. In Buddhism, Naraka is also a realm of suffering, part of the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Zoroastrianism, hell and judgment. Zoroastrianism, an ancient pre-Islamic religion of Persia, describes a form of hell. The wicked are said to be punished in a place of torment after death, as mentioned in the Avesta, the holy scriptures of Zoroastrianism.
I'm sure you are like me in that if something is first, then the chances are it is the correct one. For example, in the case of God. The reason why I bring God into this is because some people have said God will send you to hell if you are bad. So let's look in order of the first mentions of God. Remember, I believe the first of something is normally the correct version, and anything after is a copy of the original. Sumerians, c. 3500, 3000 BCE. Ancient Egypt, c. 3100 BCE. Indus Valley Civilization, c. 2500, 1900 BCE. Akkadian, c. 2334 to 154 BCE. Ancient China, Shang Dynasty, c. 646 BCE. Ancient Greece, Mycenaean Civilization, c. 1600, 1100 BCE. Hittites, c. 1600, 178 BCE. Hebrews, Ancient Israel, c. 1200, 1000 BCE. Vedic Civilization, Ancient India, c. 1500, 500 BCE. Ancient Persia, Zoroastrianism, c. 1600 BCE. Olmecs, Mesoamerica, c. 1400, 400 BCE. Ancient Rome, Early Kingdom period, c. 753, 509 BCE. Christianity, c. 1st century CE. Catholicism, c. 4th century CE. Distinct establishment as Roman Catholic Church. Islam, c. 610 CE. Latter-day Saint movement, Mormonism, c. 1820s CE. Several of the gods or religious figures from the list have teachings that emphasize exclusive worship or the rejection of other gods. Here are a few notable examples. Yahweh, Hebrews, Ancient Israel. The Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, contains numerous commands from Yahweh stating that the Israelites should worship no other gods. Notably, the first commandment in the Ten Commandments, Exodus 23, is, "You shall have no other gods before me." Ahura Mazda, Zoroastrianism. Zoroaster, Zarathustra, the prophet of Zoroastrianism, taught that Ahura Mazda is the supreme and only God worthy of worship. The religion emphasizes the rejection of devas, false gods or demons. God, Allah, Islam. In Islam, Allah is the singular and only God. The central tenet of Islam is Tawheed, the oneness of God, and the Quran repeatedly states that there are no gods but Allah. For example, Surah Al-Ikhlas, 112, 124, declares the oneness of God, and Surah Al-Baqarah 2, 163 says, "And your God is one God. There is no deity worthy of worship except Him, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful." God, Christianity. In Christianity, particularly as taught by Jesus and His apostles, there is a strong emphasis on the worship of the one true God. The New Testament reiterates the command to worship only God, as seen in passages like Matthew 4:10, where Jesus says, "You shall worship the Lord your God, and Him only shall you serve." Christianity, emerging from Jewish monotheism, continues the tradition of exclusive worship. Can you see the inconsistency there? Many later gods are claiming to be the first and only God. Let's take a moment to look at this. Use logic. Sumerians, Ancient Egypt, Indus Valley Civilization, Akkadians, Ancient China, Ancient Greece, Hittites, never had any god saying they are the only God and that all and others are fake? Why do you think that is? It goes back to the original being correct. The Anunnaki were the gods. Their race name is God. I have proven that with evidence. Feel free to watch my amazing documentary called The Lost Book of Our True History. It's on my website, Our True History. Do you think any God that created men would allow people to worship fake gods, even thought he was talking to us since the start of man, Homo sapien? Think about it. An almighty being creates us and tells us to worship him. And the first thing us humans do is build temple for the Anunnaki. That is a fact. Enki, Enlil, Nana, Ninurta, and many others all had the first temples. Do you think an almighty being would then let other cultures make up fake gods, then worship fake gods, then way later pop in and tell people you are worshiping the wrong God? If you do worship the wrong God, then go to hell. Christianity. The New Testament includes teachings that suggest those who do not believe in and follow Jesus Christ will face eternal punishment in hell. Islam. The Quran explicitly states that those who do not believe in Allah and follow the teachings of Islam will be punished in hell. The simple solution to God's problem of humans worshiping or not even believing in Him would be to show yourself, do one magic trick, perform a miracle, take your lapis lazuli throne, and parade around with it. But no, of course, he done none of these simple things, because God were the Anunnaki. And yes, Enlil, the Anunnaki god, also called the Most High, had a lapis lazuli throne just like God did.
So where does that leave us? With regards to hell? Well, we know that the Anunnaki gods called space heaven and that no humans that die go there. What about hell? There is no point in looking into anything other than the Anunnaki gods' version of hell. Everything that came after is based off the Sumerian texts for hell, but not just Sumerian. I'll explain later about other cultures that are the Anunnaki talking about the same hell. Is hell real? Yes, there was a place that we would call hell, but it wasn't called that back then. In Mesopotamian stories, the underworld is called Kur or Irkala.
To watch the full 40-minute documentary, please visit ourtruehistory.co.uk.
I may have solved what the pine cone represents that the Anunnaki held, and now it's also in front of the Vatican. In fact, this was actually by the Pantheon originally, and originally before that it was over in Sumeria. So I have also solved many other things. You can get to them on my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk. But with this, I'll be doing a video very soon, and I'll let everyone know my findings. So you've got to remember, I research literally every single day. So I knew at some point or another I'll come across something that will finally click and make me understand what it represents. So yeah, I'll show you when it's done. And it's not what people normally associate to do with the pineal gland, not from my new research. Here's a clip from my documentary, Who's Running Planet Earth?
And Ninurta, because they were the royal ones here on Earth. Enki and Enlil were...
I don't want to spoil it. It's out on the 10th of August 2024. It's just a couple of days. It's got a countdown. But if you can't wait, or you do want to watch it and it's already now out, all you have to do is go to my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk, type in whatever it is you want, whether it's Who's Running Planet Earth or Anunnaki videos, and you'll see a long list of documentaries covering all sorts of things, Norse, etc. So find the one that you're interested in, or all of them, and just watch them. Hopefully you'll enjoy some. So the video's out this weekend. I release new videos every single week, so this new one is in just 2 days' time. But there's thousands more you can go watch right now from my website. Which alien Anunnaki is running our planet? I'll explain in a moment. The video is now released. I'll show you how to get that. But just have a look at this for a second, guys. Big circle in the middle there. Have a look. And here's the Vatican. Big circle in the middle. Anyway, so if you're interested in finding out who's running the planet, unlike any other video, just go to my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk, type in dollar bill, or if it's underneath the Anunnaki section, because that's who's running our planet, scroll down and come to the one, there's thousands of videos here, Who's Running the Planet. And there's one above actually called Anunnaki Gods versus the Bible, and so on. But so this one's a 10-minute video, and it will show you stuff that you've never seen before on the dollar bill. It's now out. You can get to it from my website.
We get our information about the flood in two different ways. The first is old texts. I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm talking about the texts the Bible copied from. There are many texts in many languages, such as Sumerian, Babylonian, Akkadian, etc. Museums around the world have these tablets and have translated the texts themselves, such as Penn Museum.
And this is one such tablet that had been broken into pieces, he actually did find more fragments of it. And in 1872, presented it at a scholarly meeting, and in 1874, published it as the 11th tablet of the Izdubar legend. And we still call it Gilgamesh 11. So he was really a pioneer. And you can imagine what a tremendous furor this caused, because you have an entire Victorian culture centered around the Bible and the Old Testament, and suddenly you have these weird and wonderful cuneiform tablets which look like nothing on earth, written by people who are mentioned in the Bible, the Assyrians, right? And telling us a tale, a narrative that, to all intents and purposes, also occurs in the Old Testament. So that really put Assyriology on the map.
First, let's look at why the flood happened from the ancient texts. There is an important tablet in the British Museum that gives a huge backstory to the Anunnaki, the alien race called gods that created Homo sapiens, but I'll show other translations in a minute.
This is just a late piece of Atrahasis, just to make the point that Atrahasis actually has a version from about 1600 or so, and versions that go all the way down through to about 650 or so in Ashurbanipal's library. And one of the interesting things is the flood story occurs in Atrahasis, and it occurs in Gilgamesh, and the same people have these two tales in their heads, but they don't see them as mutually exclusive. They're just different parts of the same tradition.
I'll come back to the Atrahasis tablet soon, but let's look at another tablet.
So this is not quite the start of the Sumerian flood story, though it is the start of this tablet. You can see this is the top edge here. And it starts off, the gods created humanity. Very nice. And the animals were multiplying below altogether. They made livestock and quadrupeds as fitting things in the steppe. In the high steppe, they somethinged joyous plants everywhere. There's a missing verb. At that time, the canal was not dug. This is very common in...
Here's a clear description of the Anunnaki creating Homo sapiens. The tablet has been called Enki and Nimna, and you can find this whole translation online. My mother, the creature you planned will really come into existence. Impose on him the work of carrying baskets. You should need clay from the top of the Abzu. The birth goddesses will nip off the clay, and you shall bring the form into existence. Let Ninma act as your assistant, and let Ninima, Kuziana, Ninmada, Ninbarag, Ninmug, and Ninguna stand by as you give birth. My mother, after you have decreed his fate, let Ninma impose on him the work of carrying baskets. It goes on to say Enki brought joy to their heart. He set a feast for his mother Nama and for Ninma. All the princely birth goddesses ate delicate reed and bread. An Enlil and the Lord Nudimud roasted holy kids. All the senior gods praised him. O Lord of wide understanding, who is as wise as you? Enki, the great Lord, who can equal your actions. Like a corporeal father, you are the one who has the me of deciding destinies. In fact, you are the me. Enki and Ninma drank beer. Their hearts became elated. And then Ninma said to Enki, man's body can be either good or bad, and whether I make a fate good or bad depends on my will. Enki answered Ninma, I will counterbalance whatever fate, good or bad, you happen to decide. Ninma took clay from the top of the Abzu in her hand, and she fashioned from it first a man who could not bend his outstretched weak hands. Enki looked at the man who could not bend his outstretched weak hands and decreed his fate. He appointed him as a servant of the king. There is more, but we even have a more defined version. Let's listen to the tablets in the Columbia University translation by George Moorhan.
The account of the Enki leadership tablet. Enki reveals a secret to the leadership's lack of conviction. A species comparable to the Anunnaki roams free in the Abzu. Through the combination of its energy with that of the Anunnaki, it may be upgraded to an intelligent rudimentary worker. Enlil exclaimed, Creation belongs to the father of all beginnings. Ninma said, We will only offer our resemblance to a live being. Enki, Ninma, and Ningishzida, Enki's son, undertake experiments. After several failures, Adam achieves perfection. Ninma exclaims jubilantly, My hands have triumphed. As hybrids, humans are unable to reproduce. Ningishzida adds two important branches to their life tree. Ninki, the spouse of Enki, helps in the creation of Tiamat, a female earthling.
This tablet goes a lot more in detail. Let me know if you'd like me to do a whole video on the creation of Homo sapiens. After the Homo sapiens started to multiply, Enki took some of them to Mesopotamia to use as slaves. Enki also had his own palace there, as agreed by Penn Museum.
They create and assign the first cities to gods, and this is also in the Penn, the Sumerian flood tablet. And on the reverse, when we pick up again, among those cities, Eridu, which is the city of the god Enki Ea, the god of wisdom and magic, they established as the leader, probably. When you see words in italics in my translations, it means that we're not quite certain that that's what was there, either because we don't understand the word or because there's a break, maybe.
Aerial scans show Enki's temple complex underground, yes, buried by the flood. Now we can see why they needed to create Homo sapiens. It's in the Atrahasis tablet.
The very first words are, when the gods like man. That's how it was known in antiquity, by the first words. When the gods like man. Did the work, bore the loads. The gods' load was too great. They worked too hard, the trouble too much. The great Anunnaki, it's a collective term for the higher gods, made the Igigi, which is a collective term for the lower gods, carry the workload sevenfold.
I've shown in my documentary called The Lost Book of Our True History that the Igigi were the younger gods, the sons of the older gods. They volunteered to come to Earth. They thought they would be heroes saving their planet, but they didn't know they would have to work in mines.
But to cut a long story short, the gods don't like this. They don't like the sweat and the toil, and you can't blame them really, right? And so they rebel, and there's a god called Allah.
This was just 7 minutes of the full 1 hour video. To watch the full 1 hour documentary, visit ourtruehistory.co.uk and search Flood. There's over 1,000 other documentaries there that you might also like. Our True History.
What are angels?
Angels are the first reflection of all that is.
You could listen to this guy who actually researches into ancient history, but doesn't need to because supposedly aliens give him all the information. So what's the point of researching? But an angel is a messenger of God. The original word was in Greek. Now, the Greeks got their words from the Sumerians, and when you read actual ancient translations, the Lord gave heed to the words of holy Inanna, and chose from the troops as a messenger one who was eloquent of speech. In other words, they chose a messenger which predates the Bible. Now, Inanna, who they're talking about in another text, Inanna announced, when I, the goddess, was walking around in heaven. That's because they have obviously spaceships, and space is heaven. So you can either listen to Bashar or you can actually go with my evidence.
Nibiru actually had its own symbol, which was carved many times in ancient times. Their planet symbol was this. Study this for a moment. Please take your time. Now look at this. Notice anything? This was just a clip of the long documentary which shows who's running the planet. To watch the full documentary, visit ourtruehistory.co.uk. There's over 1,000 other documentaries there that have solved mysteries you thought you'd never see solved. Our True History.
There was rivers in the past on Mars. In Sitchin's book, he tells of a great storm on Mars that forced the Igigi to stay here on Earth. They never went back, which also makes sense why there are structures photographed on Mars, because the Igigi were there once. Here is a Sumerian tablet that proves that the Igigi were the younger ones, the sons of God. This translation, including the wording in brackets, are done by the University of Oxford, which agrees with Zechariah Sitchin. A hymn to Marduk for Abi Isu A, c. 2.8.5.1 king who gathers up the divine powers of heaven and earth.
foremost son of Enki, Marduk, mighty lord, perfect hero, foremost of the great princes, a name for the Igigi gods, strong one of the Anuna, the great gods who have given him justice and judgment, great prince, descendant of holy An, Lord who decides destinies, who has everything in his grasp, wise, august knower of hearts, whose divinity is manifest, who shows concern for all that he looks upon. Your ancestor An, king of the gods, has made your lordship effective against the armies of heaven and earth. However, in the Enuma Elish, the translator L.W. King around 1910 said they were the older gods. This is incorrect, as I've already read out. The leader of the senior gods was Enki from a translation. I feel L.W. King may not have read all the tablets at that point. They may not have been all found to make a clearer picture. This next passage is from the AI Chapt GPT. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Igigi are generally considered to be younger gods or deities. They are often depicted as a group of lesser gods who were created by the higher gods, such as the Anunnaki. The term Igigi itself is believed to derive from the Sumerian word Igi, meaning youth or youthful ones. This next part shows why one of the reasons Sitchin believed the Igigi were on the away station on Mars. Sitchin called Mars Lamu, but others translate it as Lakmu. Here is a passage from Project Gutenberg's The Babylonian Legends of the Creation by British Museum. Yes, the British Museum has wrote this. The primitive gods Lakmu and Lakamu and the Igigi cuneiform, who may be regarded as star gods. Also in the same translations by the British Museum, there is this which I believe is the part where the king tells the Igigi they will be stationed somewhere. Yea, over the gods of heaven and earth, all of them, 120. His kingship we will exalt. 121. We will look unto the king of all the heaven and the earth at night, when the place of all the gods is darkness, literally sadness. 122. He hath assigned our dwelling in heaven and in earth in the time of trouble. 123. He hath allotted stations to the Igigi and the Anunnaki. 124. The gods themselves are magnified by his name. May he direct their sanctuaries. 125. I'll now read out what Sitchin said in his book 111. Your success shall for eternity be recorded. By glorious names you shall be called. Those who on earth are shall as Anunnaki be known. Those who from heaven to earth came. Those who on Lamu are, Igigi shall be named. Those who observe and see they shall be. Now back to the British Museum's own words, 123. He hath allotted stations to the Igigi and the Anunnaki. You can see that the Igigi were given a place to work. I'll talk about the Igigi a bit later on. Keep hold of that name for the young sons of gods, for that's what they were. They were the teenagers or young adults, the sons of God.
So now we've proved that the Igigi were the sons of God. Let's have a look at what Genesis. Now remember what I said about Genesis being the closest version to the ancient text. Now we've just read out the ancient text. Now let's have a listen to what Genesis says about the Igigi, the same people. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth. So that's us humans after they'd created us. And the daughters were born unto them. So in other words, human males had females for daughters, which makes sense because we have sons and daughters. But this is where the Bible carries on. The sons of God saw the daughters of men. So the Igigi saw the daughters of men. Makes sense to me. And they were fair. In other words, fair game really. And they liked them. So it says, and they took them wives of all which they choose. So clearly the Igigi came down, which I'll cover in a second, from Mars and took human women. But it carries on. This is the Bible literally agreeing with the Anunnaki. And the Lord said, you know who the Lord is, my spirit shall not always strive with man. In other words, doesn't agree with us. For that he also is flesh. Also is flesh. Think about that for a second. Any religious person has to understand that he's agreeing that their flesh, there's no way around it. You can't say, oh, well, God's, not really flesh. He wants to be flesh whenever he wants to. That's baloney. I'll read that bit again. And the Lord said, and we know the Lord is, well, there's actually lots of lords. I haven't even covered that part yet, but basically the great Lord Enki is the great one. For that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And that's because us humans lived actually up to 120 years when the Anunnaki first created us, compared to the Anunnakis, thousands and thousands of years. And it carries on. There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God come unto the daughters of men, and they bear children with them. So that basically means the Ajiji, who were physical, flesh, just like it said there, took our human women and had kids with them. Then it carries on. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So this was where the giants come in. So some of the Anunnaki offspring with humans had gigantism, which made sense because the Anunnakis were 8 to 12 foot tall in the first place, and us humans wasn't. We was 5 foot something, approximately. So clearly the Bible, anyone that tells you that the Bible's talking about an almighty being that's not flesh, just point out Genesis 6. My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. And a marvellous sentence there. That sums it up, but obviously people won't want to hear that, but it says it.
To see the full 3-hour video that covers the Anunnaki and Igigi and proves the Anunnaki gods were the gods in the Bible, visit ourtruehistory.co.uk. You'll find over 1,000 videos, all with evidence on many subjects, from crop circles to crystal skulls and Bigfoot, etc.
This might surprise you. This may be Inanna, also known as Ishtar from the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian stories. And here is a carving of a woman that looks very, very similar to her indeed. And she is attacking a bull. Now Marduk, who was the son of Enki, was represented as a bull. And this woman here is obviously attacking it. Now, Marduk was in charge of the Middle East around the same time as Jesus was born. In fact, if you watch my amazing documentary on who Jesus' father is, you'll see it would have been Marduk. But Inanna was the sworn enemy of this bull. And in fact, you'll never guess where this carving is. It's in the Vatican. And if you look, they've even got a centaur. So my advice is hold on. I'll be doing a deep dive video into this. And look, there's a lovely eagle there, dollar bill. So yes, enjoy. Keep following me. Another world's first. Demons have been solved. Yes, with evidence, as always. I now show what demons actually mean from the very first people that ever mentioned the word demons. So we now know exactly what they were referring to. So all the people that say that they've seen demons, etc., obviously are making that up, because when you watch this video, you realise that I'm not going to spoil it. So you'll find out exactly what it is. If you're interested, you can go visit my website, ourtruehistory.co.uk. Enlil, the Anunnaki god that came to Earth. Now, I'm doing a video deep dive on which Greek and Roman god would he be. Now, I've already done one on Kronos, which I actually rewrote the Greek history with evidence. So mine shows that it's not actually what we're told. Bearing in mind the earliest records that we do have for Greeks is about 400 years after any events, and it was all verbally passed down. So what we get is basically a mix-up of things where I'm now unravelling it with evidence. So it comes out on 6 days' time, which is the 15th of September 2024. Follow me and I'll let you know when it's out. This might make you laugh. The Pope, which is the highest priest for the Vatican, isn't the very first time that the priest was created. In fact, if you look at these ancient Sumerian texts that predate the Bible, the Anunnaki, Enki, Enlil, etc., had priests. So, in other words, this one, the Almighty God, decided to copy the Anunnaki's priests, which is weird because obviously the Anunnaki were actually called, if you type in gods, you'll find that their race name, the Anunnaki's race name, was gods. There you go. And these are from the ancient tablets that predate the Bible. So it's a bit of a giggle, isn't it? The fact that God, Almighty God, needed to nick the same idea as the previous gods in some... Yeah, you know what I'm saying. World's first children's book that's on Amazon that shows the Anunnaki with evidence created us. Grown-ups will tell you about how they believe the universe started. Some will talk about a single God creating the universe. However, it's really rare to hear that aliens were the gods. But some ideas are more than just ideas. We actually have evidence. The truth is, there were aliens here a long time ago, but for many different reasons, people don't want us to know. However, this book will show with evidence what really happened. How do we know there were aliens here? Throughout history, over 2 million tablets have been found in modern-day Iran, Iraq. Sorry, I'm trying to read over the phone. This area in the Middle East was once called Mesopotamia. These tablets are written in the oldest recorded language on earth, Sumerian. It's described as, and describes the life and times of a race of aliens called gods. The last page of this book has helpful reminders. So basically, each bottom of each page has evidence where it will give you a link or descriptions to something that it's referring to at the time. So as you can probably guess, this book is unlike any other you will ever come across. So if you, I mean, it's not just for children, obviously. If you want evidence, it gives you the links to the evidence, etc. It even gives you time frames so you understand what happened when. And as I say, it gives links on the bottom of every page. So if you're interested in finally getting your child the book, so all those other ones, you know the ones I'm referring to, what tell us stuff because they want us to believe in stuff. If you're like me, who actually just goes by evidence, then this amazing book, which I had done myself, so you can be sure that I won't mess around, is on Amazon. And so you can just go there now. It's called Our True History.